The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear, and the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist, but we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees, even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the Arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio, where we explore the unexplained live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, coming to you from the spectral shadows of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Now, before I introduce my guest, I want to go over a case I recently received, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So it involved a civilian employee over at the Greenville, Mississippi Air Force Base, which is now the Mid-Delta Regional Airport. This happened back in the 50s, and it involved a craft and an alien being sighting. So let me read what was sent to me. The witness stated that my uncle was an electronics specialist and civilian employee at the Air Force Base in Greenville, Mississippi in the mid-50s. Now, one day, some military authorities escorted him and several other civilian employees into a large aircraft hangar and ordered them to stay there until they were told that they could come out. Now, none of the men's questions about what was going on were answered. The military authorities closed the hangar doors and left. Now, the men in the hangar hung around the area where the hangar doors came together, and they discovered that they could actually peek outside and see what was going on. What they noticed was a disc-shaped aircraft about 40 foot in diameter descend vertical and land on the tarmac outside the hangar. Now, several men with cameras filmed the entire incident from the elevated scaffolding, and other cameramen stood on the ground. A door opened on the aircraft, and a child-sized being walked down the short ramp. The alien being used a handheld device to communicate with the military personnel. Now, the aircraft was on a tripod landing gear with wheels, and several men were ordered to push it into the hangar across the way. And once the alien aircraft was inside the hangar, the men closed the doors. Now, the doors were reopened several minutes later, and the same men pushed the alien aircraft back outside into its original position. The men around the aircraft stepped away from it, and it soon lifted vertically, silently, and quickly darted away. Now, as soon as the alien aircraft was gone, some military men opened the hangar doors where the civilian men were standing and told them to carry on. Now, the person who wrote to me stated that I was a teenager when I heard this story, and my reaction to it was a mix of uncertainty and disbelief. My uncle didn't have any reason to lie about it. And years later, I was watching a program about UFOs on television, and a man who saw the same event described it exactly as my uncle had described it years earlier in every detail. I was amazed, but while I have seen many UFO programs on television repeated several times, I never saw that particular interview again. I now realize the importance of the event, but my uncle died several years ago, and I imagine that the other witnesses have passed as well. So just the same, I wanted to get this information out there for what it's worth. So here it is. I hope to prove it beneficial. Our government is about to confess it has lied to us about UFOs since 1949. Doing so would destroy what little credibility it still has. Well, I guess if you buy into what they're showing us lately, and which I believe they're kind of spoon feeding us what they want to show us. But you know, it is what it is. So I thought that was an interesting account. So tonight, I welcome paranormal investigator and author Kitsy Duncan to Arcane Radio. Now, Kitsie has been investigating the paranormal for over 12 years. She investigates differently than most. She goes in with love, light, peace, and positivity, and helps the spirits tell their stories. As host and lead investigator for Oddity Files, Kitsie has sought the paranormal in some of the most interesting haunted locations. In her recent released book, I'd Rather Talk to Dead People, Kitsie shares her experiences. She is also producer and lead investigator for TV Oddity Files on Amazon Prime. And she is also the co-host of Oddity Files podcast, co-host of True Crime podcast, Miss Murder, and hosts the Get Scared podcast. So, Kitsie, thanks for coming on the show. You're quite busy.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm a little less busy. Miss Murder's on permanent hiatus right now. I just needed to breathe and hydrate. So I cut out one of the podcasts recently. It was just a lot. When the pandemic went down, I'm like, I just got to keep busy, got to keep busy, got to keep busy. And, I had like 40 million podcasts, wrote a book, and now the book's out. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to chill for a bit now.
Well, I don't blame you. I'll tell you, I had actually wanted to write another book this year, but even with the downtime and the less amount of investigating that my team and I have been doing because of it, I didn't even start writing a book. So I don't know when that's going to come again. So we'll just have to wait and see.
It's a lot harder than it looks on TV writing a book,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not, it's supposed to be a joy. I guess at some point it is for me, but it can be a chore sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I loved it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, this is what we want to talk about, your book. And but first of all, how did you get involved with the paranormal?
So I was terrified of it growing up. Anything otherworldly, aliens included in that. Close Encounters of the Third Kind ruined me. The movie Poltergeist ruined me. I was that little girl who mom had to tell me I had an overactive imagination, and I believed her, thank God. But my dad passed away when I was in my 30s. He was only 53 years old, and here I am knocking on 51's door. So the older I get, the scarier that number gets for me. But there were no goodbyes. It was sudden. And I just kind of felt like he was with me sometimes. And I'm like, well, if dad's a ghost, that can't be nearly as scary as the movie Poltergeist. So I finally got around and binged all the paranormal TV shows I could get my hands on. I read some books. I read websites. And I realized that ghosts can't kill you. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to get murdered by a ghost. So I'm going to look into this. And then I had some friends that had a paranormal team, and they invited me on an investigation. And I walked into my very first paranormal investigation, and I felt at home. I wasn't scared. I wasn't, having a panic attack. It felt lovely, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through the night, and, the one guy's yelling at the ghost, "Come at me, bro." And somebody allegedly got scratched. And I'm like, okay, I like this concept, just not with these people. Mm-hmm. So I went on one more investigation with them, and then I just went out on my own. And I was out on the East Coast at Ferry Plantation, wonderful location. And I then saw my first ghost, and I was hooked.
Mm. Well, how did you react to this first ghost that you witnessed?
I chased after her.
Oh, did you?
Little girl, where'd you go? Where'd you go? And I rounded the corner. So what happened was, She was known as the Fairy Plantation Girl. They now have a name for her, but she kind of peeked her head around the corner and had the most adorable little smile, looked at me right in the eyes, then ducked back around the doorway. And I'm like, oh, I have to follow her. And I went around the corner and it was a dead end. There was nowhere she could have gone. And in retrospect, she wasn't, flesh colored or anything. She had a bluish grayish hue to her, but I still to this day have that imprint in my mind of this sweet little girl in her petticoat and her curly little hair. And I went and talked to the people who ran the investigations there, and I explained what I had seen, and they bring out this book of all these drawings of the spirit that other people had seen there, and it was this little girl. So it validated what I saw. Did I get on camera? Of course not, because that would be way too easy. But I was absolutely hooked at that point.
Well, I tell you, I had been seeing or sensing spirit energy ever since I was little. And it's something I grew up with. I was born and raised around Gettysburg battlefield, so I was on there all the time. I mean, during the summers, I spent days there. I would even camp out at night sometimes. And, and I knew I had some abilities, but I didn't really understand them. But as time went on, I started to understand it a little better. I didn't live in a haunted house, anything like that, but I could actually sense and learn that I could sense these energies when they were around me.
Yeah.
So, I got, it's interesting how people start to realize the paranormal in different ways. They start to realize it. And I mean, of course, you got interested in it right away, and then you saw an entity, and like you said, you were hooked.
Yeah. I did grow up in the haunted house.
Oh, did you?
I did. But did I ever see a ghost? No, because Mom just kept saying it was my overactive imagination, and I just pull the blankets over my head and get in the fetal position and whimper myself to sleep. But we had a ghost that would hide things from us all the time, and it was the running joke in our house. So my family was open to it, but it was just so scary for me. And I don't know, because I come to find out I am an empath and I do sense things. And I maybe that's why I was so scared of it as a kid. I say this all the time. I wish there was a paranormal rule book, like the real handbook for the recently deceased from Beetlejuice. That would be amazing, but there's not.
Yeah, it's it is funny how different people react to it, and how others just kind of get used to it and enjoy it. Of course, I guess there's a lot of these investigators are people who call themselves investigators, go out there for the fear factor aspect of it. I don't buy into that. I'm like you. When I used to do a lot of investigations, I didn't go out there screaming at spirits to share themselves or this and that. I mean, I tried to maintain a little bit of decency if I could. I will admit I have been attacked. Literally, I have been physically attacked on occasion, but it was just because of what I ran into. It wasn't anything I did.
Yeah. And one great thing about writing this book and putting everything to paper or computer screen, whichever it may be, is I kind of came to the conclusion that people need, and in real life too, not just dealing with ghosts, you need to open up the lines of communication. You need to have a sense of empathy. Like one of the locations we went to in Kentucky was known for actually throwing an investigator across the room. And this same spirit was also known for calling women bad names. And I'm like, I'm not having it. I deal with spirits like I would somebody who was standing in front of me. And I think more people need to do that. Stop being keyboard warriors because you can't see the spirit. they're there. They were human at one point and they have feelings too. And if you make them mad, they're going to get mad. So, but this gentleman that was, not a fan of ladies, and I flat out asked him, I said, so why do you hate women so much? It doesn't bother me that you just called me a slut. I don't care. What is the problem? I said, what? Did your wife cheat on you? And over my spirit box, he said, yeah. And I said, well, what was your slut wife's name? And he goes, Penny. I said, there you go. I'm going to tell your story. Now stop treating women like that. And by the end of the night, when I went back to that same room on a solo investigation by myself, the ghost ended up telling me he liked me and that I was beautiful. So, it's just, again, it's like dealing with people. When you're face to face with somebody, you're not just going to start yelling at them. Well, I mean, in this day and age, people do, but we need to stop it.
Yeah, I agree with you. When people get scared of noises or they start seeing things, but the first thing you got to have them realize is most of the time, if not 99% of the time, they're just looking for attention. A lot of them don't even know they're dead. I mean, they may have died suddenly, or they felt that they had to remain on this level because of unfinished business or for whatever reason. But they do want to get attention from the living, and that's what people are experiencing a lot of time when they're being touched or hearing noises and such. And I hear people with all kinds of excuses as to why they think that these spirits do what they do, but I'm pretty convinced that it has a lot to do with just letting people know that they're there.
Oh, yeah. I believe they have a story to tell. That's why they're still here. And they will tell anybody who's going to listen to them. So we need to stop yelling at them and actually listen to them.
So what is the most haunted location that you've ever been to?
Been to quite a few. One of my favorites that is notoriously haunted, everybody talks about it, is Bobby Mackey's. And and I go into these places, you hear the stories, you watch the TV shows, but I go in with an open mind. And I think more people need to do that. So you get the stories that the spirits that night or whenever it is you were there want to tell you. I didn't run into a single demon when I was at Bobby Mackey's. I went into the basement blindfolded, felt nothing negative. And like I said, I am an empath. I do feel energies. Was I on edge? Yes, absolutely. Yes, because I had seen the shows and I had heard the stories, but it's not what people say it is. At least it wasn't for me.
Right.
I like you in my introduction, I go into these places and I tell the spirits straight up, guys, I'm here out of love, light, peace, and positivity. I'm not here to hurt you, harm you, or take you away. I'm only here to hear your story. And that's what I get in return. Some of these people go in and they're all amped up. I'm coming looking for demons, and they're whatever activity they get, they're going to think it's exactly what they're looking for. But like I said, I go in with an open mind. I'm willing to listen to any story. Some of my favorite places to investigate are locations that's never been investigated before, because there's no legends or lore or made up stories about things that didn't even happen there.
Right.
And I treat Waverly and Bobby Mackey's and Octagon Hall the exact same way.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. You talk about Bobby Mackey's has got a reputation for having these malevolent energies there. I don't necessarily believe in what people refer to as demons. I mean, evil is evil, in my opinion. And if you go in there, if you're, I think a lot of these energies, these entities, can sense the way a person actually is, a living person. And I think they will react to them in the way that they feel is appropriate to react to them. And and you talk about Bobby Maggers. I've seen where people have gone in there and have had some real adverse reactions, and yeah, and I think that happens everywhere.
Yeah. What you get out of an investigation is what you bring into the investigation.
Mhm.
And like I said, if you walk in thinking you're going to find demons, no matter what evidence you get, you can twist it and manipulate it so you can be like, well, this is exactly what I came for. This place is crawling with demons or malevolency or whatever the case may be. And I think that's what happens at a lot of these places that are known for the darker energies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there was a time when I used to go at the locations and look for spirits, look for ghosts, look for some type of paranormal activity. I mean, over the past 20 years, that's nothing what I do now. I basically try to help people and try to explain what's going on with them. I'm a remote viewer. I use a lot of other tools, and it's more about helping the living to understand more so than anything else. I don't really want to go into somewhere and find spirits or find this type of stuff. I mean, I just do it to kind of answer questions for the living.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at now too. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been there, I've done that. I've been to these places where you get to lock down for a night and you're lucky if you have heat first and foremost over that. Um but this I think this might be my calling right now is the exact same thing is
Yeah.
helping people understand what they're going through and that it's not always it's 9.997 times out of 10 it's not something scary, it's just something trying to communicate with them.
Exactly right. I've worked with I've worked with a lot of families with kids too. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, until the children are their minds are polluted by the outside world, they come into this world very innocent and they see a lot of different things that they don't understand. And many times it turns out that they're either an empath or they are actually a young medium or someone who will eventually either become a full-blown medium or it'll kind of wane off. It just depends. And I
Yeah.
try and I do help with the parents to try to explain to them, the kids, what's going on. And that's a lot of what I have done in recent years. It's I don't know why it's worked out that way, but that's the way it has been. So yeah, that's somewhat satisfying. I don't do it as much I used to, but yeah, it's I have done a lot of that in recent years.
Yeah, it's so much more rewarding.
Yeah.
I actually went and hung out at a friend's house who was trying to contact her mom because she thought her mom was there at the house. She had a touch lamp that was going off and on with commands and answering questions for her. And I went back a second time and her dad came through.
Mhm.
And, they had a tumultuous relationship while he was alive. And we couldn't understand at first why he kept saying he was sorry and that he was ashamed until he finally said his name. And his name was Phil. And my friend's like, oh, that's my dad. This all makes so much sense. And while her mom and her grandmother were there as well, I think they brought me there so that her father was able to make this apology. It was
Yeah.
actually beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. When he came over on the spirit box and said, "Love you, girl," I had to get up because I was about to start crying.
Mm. Yeah, it's it kind of affects all of us in different ways, but it is it, somebody like me has been basically born into it. My parents never really had any idea what was going on with me. And
Really?
oh yeah, I mean, I never said anything to them about it. Um, I really had no reason to, and I guess they wondered why I was going to Gettysburg all the time. But other than that, uh, you know, because I was really curious about the spirit world. And when I had a very profound incident happen on one day when I was 9 on the battlefield, I was kind of hooked then. But then it got to that point where I wanted to just to learn what was really going on. And eventually, as I got older, I kind of had my own idea of what I thought was going on. And it's a progression. You talk to a lot of people, and but when you get to my age, I guess then you kind of got a sense of what really is happening. And that's where you're left at. I mean, I don't know how much more that I'm going to do, but I don't think I'm ever going to write a book about it. The people have told me to do that, but I don't think I'm going to write a book. I got enough stuff to write books about.
So, funny story. My very first ghost anything was in Gettysburg. I didn't see anything, but it was like my very first ghost tour where they walk you around the Jenny Wade house, and you go in the other house across the street in the basement. And I was there at a horror convention. My husband and I, our day job, well, used to be till COVID hit, was we do photo ops for fan conventions. So my very first ghost anything, I had Doug Bradley there. He plays Pinhead in Hellraiser. Scout Compton Taylor was there. She was in the Rob Zombie, Michael Myers movies, and a couple other horror people as well. And so that's kind of always sticks in my head that it was kind of cool that, I mean, I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything. And was I terrified? Oh yeah, absolutely. But I did do a ghost tour in Gettysburg, and it's a beautiful town. I love it there.
Yeah. I mean, it's, when people go to Gettysburg, not everybody realizes that this energy is everywhere around there. I mean, it's so imprinted with spirit energy, and a lot of what happened during those 3 days of the battle. It you can find it anywhere. Now, I kind of have my favorite places. I'm not on the places I go to and where I kind of hang out once in a while, because I still do it. I will actually drive down the road here, because I only live about 10 miles from Gettysburg, and I will go to certain locations that I've always gone to, and that's where I hang out. And it's not like I said with the tours. They always take you to, like you said, the Jenny Wade house or Devil's Den, or someplace. The taverns, Farnsworth, and some other places along the battlefield. But I tell you, I mean, I have heard, seen, and experienced so much out there. It's remarkable.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure of it. I'm not a big fan of investigating outdoors because people scare me more than ghosts. That's why I'd rather talk to dead people. But I think the battlefield at Gettysburg is probably in my top 10. Just, I recently, so I don't know if you saw this, but on Facebook, there's a video going around of somebody in who has a Tesla. You know how you've got that big screen inside the car, and it pops up when cars are passing you and things like this on this big tablet that's in your car. Well, somebody was sitting in a graveyard, broad daylight, nobody around the car, but the Tesla, 360 cameras on it were picking up a person standing next to the car. So talk about the ultimate ghost hunting equipment for somebody who doesn't like to investigate outside. So I recently got a Tesla. I call her Morticia. Morticia and I should head out to Gettysburg and ghost hunt from the car.
Yeah, that battlefield is one location where people see a lot of stuff while they're driving. I think that's a main reason why so many entities are actually photographed more there than most other places. I don't know if they're intelligent spirits. I think for the most part, what people see are just imprinted or residual energies. There was one going around recently about this Confederate soldier that kept showing up around a pair of cannons, and that was on the west side of the battlefield. It was funny. I kind of had to laugh at it because when it first came up, when people are showing it and all inspired about this, I was kind of laughing and talking to other people saying, I've seen that thing several times over the last 25, 30 years. And, I actually found a video from about 15 years ago where the same thing was actually caught. So it's a residual energy, but sometimes you see it more than you do other times.
Yeah. You and he go way back. You guys are like besties. Yeah, I think the New York Post posted that around Halloween, if I remember right.
Right. Yeah, something like that. It's funny because there have been times when I'd be out there in the battlefield, and I occasionally get to talk to some of the Rangers. Well, before this COVID thing, but I would talk to the Rangers. And there was one time I love this story. I was over by the Little Round Top, and one of the Rangers was there, and I was talking to him. And I asked him, I said, well, he knew who I was. I mean, he knew I was out there all the time, just, nosing around. And he said, something happened the other day. I was down by Devil's Den, and some of the people that were visiting, and I think he said they were from Mississippi, but anyway, he said that they came up to me and they asked, well, why wasn't the reenactor or reenacting scenario mentioned, something was going on? And he looked at me and said, well, there wasn't, we had no reenactors on the battlefield, this time that I know of. He just said, well, I was over there by Devil's Den, over there by the steps, and I was talking to a reenactor.
Oh,
yeah. And she said it was a Union soldier, guy dressed up like a Union soldier, and she was actually conferring with it. So I don't know what the hell that was all about, but
I'm jealous.
Yeah. And you hear that a lot. You hear people talk about seeing formations of soldiers marching through the fields on occasion. Something similar type of activity. Yeah. So there is spirit activity, intelligent spirit activity that I don't know if for whatever reason this thing is able to communicate with a human, a living person. Why that happens, I haven't really quite figured that out yet.
Well, but, and why did it look so real to where the lady that she was talking to, like every ghost I've seen is either like partially see-through or more of a glowing light?
For whatever reason, some of the full body apparitions that people have seen out there are actually look like they're real. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Now I can't say that I have seen that. There was an apparition that I'm very familiar with that I've seen 5 or 6 times. Was at an area called Spangler Spring, which is on the east side of the battlefield, just above Culp's Hill. And there's a female, what it looks like a female dressed in white, that actually floats down from one of the hillsides by the Spangler Spring and moves across the road. It was funny because I used to take friends that I used to go to school with, and we'd sit out there and watch this thing. I had a girlfriend I took out there one time. She literally freaked out on me. She got ran out of the car.
Very romantic, Lon.
Yeah, I warned her. I warned her, but she took off down the road. I had to go pick her up, but yeah, I guess maybe she didn't believe me, but yeah.
Well, yeah. So, have you investigated anywhere other than Gettysburg, or is that just your jam because it's so close?
Well, when I was younger, I used to investigate a lot of locations where people would contact me. And, back then when I was started doing it, I mean, paranormal investigator, you tell somebody you're a paranormal investigator, they look like you're a nut. I mean, this is
Well,
back
they
in
still
this,
do.
yeah, well, this was back in the late 70s. And, it was kind of a word of mouth thing. I had just
Mhm.
gotten out of high school, and and people would contact me through word of mouth. I got this thing going on. Something's, can you come look? And that's what I would do. And I would try to explain to them what's really going on, maybe get some answers for them. But as time is
Yeah.
going on, it's kind of becoming a vogue thing now. But I don't normally go into just locations to look for ghosts. I mean, I just don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't fault anybody for doing it, because believe me, I have a lot of friends that do it. But it's just something that kind of doesn't float my boat anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an adrenaline rush for sure.
Mhm.
And I would not take back a second of it. I think I'm at the point. So as I was writing this book, The Oddity Files Crew, which is the TV show that's out, the band broke up. One of us moved out to the West Coast, and my son, decided, Mom, I'm done. I just don't want to do it anymore, which I totally get. So
Mhm.
I think that was part of why I've decided that I want to help people out. Um, it's much more interesting, much more satisfying, and especially because so far, it's pretty much been friends or friends of friends that I've been over to their house and kind of looked into things for them. But aside from having an absolutely working bathroom and heat and air conditioning, it's more of a chill. It's because you get Waverly for a night, and you've got X amount of hours, and you're rushing to make sure you get every location in that building you want to, and you're never going to do it. Bobby Mackey's we had for 5 hours, and we still didn't hit every inch of the location.
Mhm.
So the rush, that specific rush, that's actually the physical rush of it, rushing around like a maniac, I don't miss at all. But when people need help and they need to understand why this is going on, that's my jam right now. So I
Yeah.
think we're on the same page, 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I'm at the point now. There's just certain places I can't go because the energy just bothers me so much. Seriously, I mean, I'll go
Yeah.
to a funeral. I'll go to a funeral home or out in the cemetery. It's nerve wracking. I mean,
Yeah.
I can sense this stuff all around me. It just drives me crazy. It's almost like even going into an antique store.
Oh,
The
that's a
imprints,
rush though.
yeah, the imprints in an antique store is pretty bad sometimes. I mean, I don't know what it is. If it's, you got all these antiques, they've been through a lot. I mean, a lot of people have, touched these things, have lived with these things, and that energy is still palpable on these objects. But I tell you, when I was younger, I used to go to a lot of antique stores. I used to do a lot of antiquing. Used to go to a lot of auctions and such. I wouldn't even think about doing it anymore because it drives me crazy. It really does. I just can't. I can't stand it. So now now where I'm living right beside a cemetery. So figure that. I think I lost your sound. Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing her now. I'm not hearing her at all. Can you hear me? Can you still hear me? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with you, Kitsie. Gotta love technology. Well, I guess what she's gonna probably do is refresh everything. That's what we had to do before. But in the meantime, If anybody has any questions in the chat room, I think I can answer them for you until Kitsie gets back on with us. If you want to do that, kind of left hanging here, but I mean, if you have any questions, Lon, was it a fluke seeing the full body apparitions, or are we meant to see them for unknown reasons? I don't know. I guess it could be a fluke, but like I said before, if you, I guess it kind of depends on the living. I mean, if you're susceptible to that and you're able to see that, yeah, then I mean, I think that's why that will happen. Are we meant to see them for unknown reasons? Maybe. Just like I was saying before with kids. When a child, before they're kind of polluted with the world, and and they're told that they're not supposed to see these things, they're kind of opened up to it. And I think these energies know that, and that's why they are able to recognize something's out there. It's interesting, some of the things that kids will tell you, young kids will tell you when they see an apparitions or some type of energy. It's usually always a monster, but I have been told all kinds of different things. Can you hear me now, Kitsie?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
So I had this ghost follow me home years ago, and she likes to mess with my audio when I don't talk about her enough. So there you go. We've spoken of Anna. She can leave my equipment alone now.
That does happen, though.
It does.
It was kind of a running joke on one of the other shows I used to be on with somebody else, that when we were talking about alien beings, for whatever reason, we were getting all kinds of interference on the radio. I mean, went online. I mean, it was some of the weirdest stuff that was going on. So, maybe the spirits are letting you know too.
Oh, yeah. So Anna, I had met her at a location. We interacted all night long, and she actually helps me at this point get the evidence. So I should probably give her a shout out. And she's probably right behind me. We just can't see her because she's the only one that messes with my audio. So apologies for Anna.
So, I mean, does she actually help you in investigations?
She does, honestly.
Is that right?
She really does. At one point, I was at a location, and she was the one that was answering the questions for me. I was doing a dowsing rod session, flashlight, the spirit box. It was all going on at once. But I finally asked her, because she's always coming over on my spirit box. I know her voice. She's been with me for years. I investigated in Australia. Her voice came over on Australian radio. I mean, that's not even a thing. And I asked her, I said, Anna, are you helping these ghosts know that it's okay to communicate with us? And she said, yes. So I need to give her more props. And she really schooled me in that this evening. So Anna, I thank you. Yeah, she was a 15-year-old servant girl from New Albany, Indiana. The Culbertson Mansion had only been investigated one other time. And we had such a connection at the location that she followed me home. And I did forget to, do the saging, smudging thing at the end of the evening. But my thing is, why do ghosts, I mean, if ghosts were humans and we have free will, why don't spirits have free will, and why can't they just follow us home if they decide they like us?
Well, I know they will. I mean, they will do that. When I used to do clearings, I would tell people, I can't guarantee that I can clear an entity from your location because they have free will. Yeah. If they don't want to leave, they will not go. You can kind of coax them to a certain degree. You can kind of bring other energies into the picture to try to move them along, but that doesn't always work out that way. And they're just like the living. They've got free will. If they don't want to do it, they won't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I went to Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, which I adore. I love it. He did a great job. He is an entertainer and knows how to sell. But I did a tarot card reading when I was there. And as soon as I walked in the door, his tarot card reader looked at me and goes, "Oh, you've got a lot of people with you." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Great." She's like, "You've been offering up your energy on these investigations, haven't you?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, sometimes when things are a little quiet at night and we're sitting there trying to get, spirit activity, I offer up my energy just like I would, my battery's energy on my camera or anything." She goes, "Stop that right now." Because the fact that you're offering them to use your energy, they think they can do whatever they want with you after that. So I don't know that it's stopped anything from actually, I know that it hasn't stopped anything from following me home. So I've had 2 that I know of that have made themselves very known to me, 2 females, and I don't mind it. I say, as long as you leave my husband alone, you guys can stay as long as you want.
Yeah, it's funny, and I tell the story a few times. When I was helping people who had possible attachments, they come to me and ask, "Well, is there something you can do for me?" But you know what the funny thing about that is that most of these people that have these attachments are people that actually go into the paranormal and try to investigate locations. And by not protecting themselves, they get an attachment. And many times it happens to people that want to go out into a graveyard or out into a cemetery and start, raising hell out there, or start saying things to the energies to upset them. And many times it leads to an attachment. I've seen it many times.
Well, there you go. Don't provoke people. That's the motto of this tonight's show. Stop the provoking. And here's the thing though, if an investigator's being a jerk, why would you even want to follow them home? I know I wouldn't if I were the dead person.
Well, like I said before, a lot of it has to do with attention. They want to let you know they're there. But even though cemeteries are scary at night, and you got all the connotations connected with that, you're going to find a few bad ones out there hanging around. I mean, there are going to be there's a lot of malevolency hanging around in cemeteries. I mean, that's just the way it is. So if you don't protect yourself and you go out there and start acting like a fool, you're gonna regret it.
Yes. And you know what? If somebody's a jerk in life, they're going to be a jerk in death. And you piss off the wrong ghost, they're just going to make your life hell.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, you're saying, you're kind of preaching what I have preached for a long time now. I just really, it upsets me when I see that. When I used to watch the paranormal shows on TV a lot when they first started coming out. And it used to really bug me when they'd provoke these energies. I mean, they would go out there and say this, and when my wife was still living, she'd be sitting beside me watching these with me, and she's there, "Why you get so upset?" It just really burned me up.
Yeah, I kind of, that's some of them. It's just their shtick, and I feel like sometimes there's an underground spirit telephone line, and I think they warn each other about people.
Maybe.
I hope they can.
Maybe.
So they just send in the tough guys to deal with those people.
Well, I did read your book. It's very interesting, very well written. Do you plan on writing another one?
I hope so. I hope it sells so that Beyond the Fray asks me back to write another book. But thank you so much for the compliments. It's written very conversational. Everybody's sat here and listened to me. That's how I tell my stories. I don't hold anything back. There are some curse words, I'm not gonna lie. And it's pretty much what happened. It's a nice companion piece to the show that's on Amazon Prime, which is called Oddity Files, because it's a look inside my head, which you don't get when you're watching these shows on TV. I could explain in more depth. Like 3 times in my entire investigative career, I've seen memories that weren't mine, which as a friend of mine, her name's Tiffany Rice, she told me that's how psychic mediums see things. So I was able to get into greater detail in the book about what I actually saw and how I actually felt when it went down. And is my
Yeah, you're getting a little interference coming up. Yeah.
Anna, stop, please. Okay. I'm serious. Please stop. Okay.
Well, it sounds good now. It just kind of cuts out once in a while.
I'm so sorry. This has never happened. I turned off all. Oh, somebody's asking if I read palms. No, that's just a Halloween decoration I got this Halloween on clearance at the end of the season. But it's so cool, isn't it? I do tarot cards. That's fun.
Yeah, I used to do some divination before too. I had a bad experience with a Ouija board years ago when I was a kid, and I just stay absolutely away from that. So you know, all the warnings about Ouija boards, and I've written about it as well from what people have sent me. It's true. There's just something about Ouija boards I just can't stand. You know, it's funny. I was at a conference in Gettysburg about 5 or 6 years ago, and one of the guys who I was with, Sean Forker, who he's on our group and used to do the radio show with me. He was sitting there with me, and this guy beside us had these old Ouija boards, these old handmade Ouija boards that he was selling, and they were antique Ouija boards. And he started putting them out on the table. I had to walk away from the place because it was just bothering me so bad. The energy coming off that thing, those Ouija boards, it just really drove me out of my mind. You know, and they were all laughing at me because they said, "Oh, we could tell as soon as the guy started putting them out there, it was bothering you." But yeah,
I collect vintage Ouija boards and mystical games from the 70s and 60s. Yeah. I have family that fought in the Civil War? I see the question on the screen there. My uncle would know. I didn't do a lot of genealogy stuff. I need to. I'm getting to that age where I need to get into that. Yes, I'm obsessed with mystical games from the 60s and 70s. I have a closet full of them over here. I just think they're so cool. You know, I play with them? No, but I collect them.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with collecting them. I just know I wouldn't do it personally.
Yeah.
But I had done a lot of divination, like I said, you said the tarot cards and that type of thing. Yeah, I've kind of gotten into a lot of that. Crystals, I'm really into the crystals, not as much as I used to be, but oh, are you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I recently moved about 2 years ago, I didn't even bother taking anything out of the box, because I used to have them all. I used to have them in my cabinets and such and all that, but I just.
There's only so many places you can put a crystal in your house.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. These weren't my working crystals. These are just specimens for everybody that came in to look at.
Yeah.
But my working crystals are still around. But
I'm a sucker for walking into a crystal shop and I pick one up and it gives you all the right tingles. And I'm like, well, I got to leave with this one now.
And, people don't understand that. When you go to buy a crystal, if you pick that up, you do get that sensation that I gotta have this one. I mean, there's something about this one, the energy on this one. It's got to come home with me.
Yes.
And I spent a lot of money that way, but that's just the way it happened.
Tell me about it. Now I just try to keep with the, the bracelets, so I can keep them on my person. I can choose which ones I feel I need that day. Yeah, but I need to stop buying them because I'm running out of places to put them.
Well, I can totally understand what you're talking about. So let's talk a bit about your show, the Oddity Files. I did watch a few of them tonight. I watched the last two, the Mackey and also down at down Louisville at the sanitarium. Waverly Hills. Very good, interesting. I mean, are you involved with the production of that, or is that
all me? Well, aside from
the
boys handle the camera work while we're there, I edited probably 98 maybe even 99% of the episodes. Clayton did help me out with a couple. Yeah, and it's a lot. It's a whole lot, especially when I was working full time at the time. So that's why I'm kind of chilling, sitting back, investigating, these people's homes. Do I take all the cameras with me? Yeah. Am I going to do anything with it? I don't know. I think I'm ready for a production company to come in and sweep me off my feet and do all the hard work.
Yeah, I think that's the route I would go if that ever came to pass. I'm not into really doing any type of production work, but it is a good show. And I mean, are you planning on a fourth season?
No, the pandemic hit 2 episodes into season 4, and they're just kind of sitting on a hard drive right now. And then, like I said, Clayton had moved away. He's all the way out in California now. And then my son is starting a new business with his dad. So, and I think he's just over it. It's not his jam like it is mine. He always told me, he's like, Mom, I'm just here to hang out with you. God love him.
Yeah, my son's the same way. I mean, I try to get him involved with cases, but he got away. I guess he did it to make me happy.
Yeah, but, that's what harder did.
Kids are. So, if people want to contact you, how can they do that, Kitsy?
If you go to flow.page/Kitsy Duncan, it's got all my social media on there. It's got my email addresses on there. It's got where you can watch the show, where you can buy the book, and where you can listen to my podcasts as well.
Well, if you have Amazon Prime, I suggest you go watch it. It's very interesting, very well done, and I'm quite sure you would enjoy listening to it. Kitsie, thanks again for coming on the show this evening, and I will try to get you back again.
I would love that. Absolutely. This was so much fun. It was so great to get to know you, Lon.
Well, I'm just glad that you, we got connected with Shannon, and Shannon's great. You know that. And
I love her.
Yeah. So you take care, and we'll be talking soon.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Now, if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to contact me through the Phantoms and Monsters blog site. If you're interested in supporting Phantoms and Monsters and Arcane Radio, you can use the PayPal donation buttons on the blog and newsletter. Your continued support is truly appreciated. And our YouTube channel, Beyond Explanation, has new content being added all the time, including the Arcane Radio archive shows. So check it out and subscribe to it. You can also become a member and get a few perks and get a few see a few of the videos before everybody else. So check that out. I want to again thank Kitsy Duncan for joining me this evening, and I want to thank you for listening to the show.